Welcome to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Ain't another place that has got more bombast. Romp past your mom, dad's listening to Tomcats. Talking everything that make you sad. We don't want that. We're here to make you smile. Put your mind at ease. Peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves. This what we about. This some weeding now. We'll talk until we can't no more, and then we peacing out. Alright, let's go. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Penny Bloom Podcast. It is I, Colton Robertson, and today I am joined by Joseph George. Surprise. Motherfucker, what's up?
What up, what up? Always a pleasure to be here. Didn't know if you could guess that I was going to be here or not, but...
Oh, man. I mean, every Friday for, 40-something Fridays now. It's been at least me and you here, at the very least.
The
and
44th.
several Mondays and several Wednesdays in those last 40-something. Or not 40-something weeks, but 40-something movies. 30-something weeks, probably. But... this week, we're a little bit over halfway through the aughts. As you know, we're continuing our 52-year journey through film. We've gone all the way through the 70s, all the way through the 80s, all the way through the 90s. We've reached halfway through the 2000s, and now we arrive at 2007, where today we discuss American Gangster.
Hey, my boy, I got another Denzel movie in here, and I'm always glad to see him. And man, can I say that compared to Training Day, I'm liking this Denzel movie a lot more.
Oh,
this one hit. Yeah,
this one hit on absurd levels. Let's lay the groundwork for the people. American Gangster released on November 2nd, 2007, written by Steve Zaillian and directed by Ridley Scott. This is our third stop with Ridley Scott on our 52-year journey through film. We hit him in the 80s with Blade Runner, and now we've hit him twice in this decade with Gladiator and now American Gangster. He also had Alien, which we covered the sequel, Aliens. Very, very interesting. And this is also our third stop with Denzel Washington. As you said, Training Day. We also had Malcolm X back in 1992. And Denzel's strictly the leading man. That man don't do the supportive role. That man's been Malcolm X. That man has been the main character in Training Day, and now here he is, Frank Lucas, the main character. He is the American Gangster.
He takes over movies, man. And I mean, in this role, he was definitely there's no question about it, him being the lead here. I guess in Training Day, the movie was supposed to be Ethan Hawke as the lead. I feel that was the idea, but just Denzel just took over.
He hijacked it.
He's just yep, this is my movie now. But I mean, we got two powerful leads here. Frank Lucas, Denzel, he's the lead here in my eyes. But I mean, Russell Crowe, he's kind of the dichotomy. That if there is a dyad of this movie, it's them too.
I'd say, last week we covered The Departed, which was our first time watching the crime movies. We've done Godfather, Goodfellas, Training Day, where they all cover one side or the other. Godfather covers the crime side, doesn't give you the cop side. Goodfellas gives you the crime side, no cop side. Training Day gives you the cop side, and they are the crime. But The Departed, it's the first time it gives us both sides of the story. And there's a betrayal aspect to it. And then this, I feel elevated that for me. I think that the betrayal and the story aspects there in The Departed were important to the movie. But the story they laid out here was, for my money, more compelling.
I mean, this was the gripes that we kind of had with The Departed was that some of the writing was a little lazy-ish. And I guess, this movie is based on somewhat of a true story, but obviously they have to, for all the drama parts, they had to come up with that. And
this was pretty highly fictionalized. There are even small details, because I wanted to see. I listened to an episode of a podcast called like Truth versus Hollywood, and they had an episode on American Gangster, and they in the movie they go over how Frank Lucas had a relationship with Bumpy Johnson, that he learned under him for 15 years, and he was he was his driver from a young age and came up with him, was his collector. Their relationship was about a decade shorter than that. So like even a detail as minute as that, because 5 years, that's enough to emphasize like, yeah, they were together, they knew each other, but 15 makes it he was his protege. He was his selected one.
I see. That's cool. I was wondering, like, just at the beginning of the movie, I did see like based on a true story. That popped up. It was part of the title card, and I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know. I thought this was completely fiction, and probably a lot of it, probably is or whatever. But somewhat based on true story. I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's always like I don't know, gives a movie like something else to it. It's like this actually happened a little bit. Like obviously there's dramatized parts, whatever. But like midway through the movie, I kind of forgot about that. I kind of like forgot that it was real because I was just like so like into the story. And then like whenever the ending comes up and it's like says all like factoids or like like he brought down 3/4 of the police organization, and I'm like, oh my God, wait a minute, this shit happened. Like at least like the big points, and I'm like, oh my God, like whoa, like it was just kind of like a click.
Another thing that's funny is this movie portrays him as getting out in like 1991, which would have had him locked up for like 20 years or something like that. He was, for the events of this movie and for the time period they cover, he was only locked up for 5. He later went back to jail, but
did he like go back into what he was doing, or did
no? I can't. I don't remember exactly why he went back to jail, but I remember his defense attorney when he did was Richie Roberts, which is hilarious.
That is interesting. Like maybe I guess like, and that's the thing. Every time I think of like a defense attorney for a criminal, like it's not usually that they're pleading not guilty or whatever. It's usually like they're pleading guilty and like they're just trying to get him the best deal. Charge. Yeah, a better deal or whatever. And I'm assuming that's probably what this was. I guess if Richie Roberts is anything like, the true Richie Roberts in real life, he's not going to let him get off free. He's very by the book, and but
he was by the book, to a degree. There are times in this movie where he takes some liberties, and I can tell you for sure if we heard reports of police doing some of these things now, ooh, buddy, there'd be problems. Propping a dead man up on a gurney and opening his eyes and acting like he's okay and parading him in front of everybody else. That's a rough one. That was one that made me go, eek. I don't like
about that. Kind of knocking out a taxi driver and taking his cab. At least he gave him some money
like that one, you do what you got to do. The dude wasn't giving up his cab. I'm more all right with that. It's unethical, but it's not as unethical as some of the other things that happen in this movie. And he pays him for the cab ride, the cab fare. Like he's like,
I love that the captain or whatever, like the guy who's kind of in charge is like, yeah, like, well, for one, like knock him out before you show him your badge next time. And then 2, like, don't tell me these things. Like, just do them. He's like, don't tell me.
He said, I don't want to hear about this again. Yeah. He said, all right, sir, I won't do it. He said, no. I didn't say I don't want you to do it. You do whatever you need to. I don't want to hear about it. That shit was very funny. And, one of my favorite aspects of this movie is that it feels, along our 52-year journey through film, I don't think there's been a more obvious influence from The Godfather, and or a movie that kind of feels most akin to it. Like even the other organized crime movies, Goodfellas, Scarface, that we've done, like those were obviously going a different direction. Like they weren't trying to be Goodfellas, but they were definitely, I mean, they're organized crime movies after Godfather. They're going to be influenced by The Godfather a little bit. This one felt like a mirror of The Godfather. Not quite as good for me, but you know, if you recall, Godfather starts with a wedding. American Gangster here starts with a funeral. Towards the end of the movie, you get a funeral from The Godfather. Towards the end of the movie here, you get a wedding with Frank Lucas. And I feel like they kind of, like, it's depicting the fall of the Italian mafioso in New York. So what better way to portray that than to flip the most classic Italian crime family movie on its head and kind of mirror it. I think there was definitely like an attention paid to The Godfather in order for this movie to be made.
Yeah, I did love the line after it's Richie and Frank. They're sitting in like an interrogation room after Richie is like caught him, you know, and he's talking about like what they're gonna do, who he's gonna snitch on, whatever. And he was like talking about how like the Italians, like they hate someone like you, you know, like or like America, like they hate someone like you. You represent progress, you know, like this is no man has done what you've done in your shoes. You know, a black man has not done this before. You represent progress, and Frank just said, you know, my man, you know, like I love like
I love like take a shot every time Frank Lucas says my man.
My man. Yeah. Quite, yeah. I think you'd be pretty drunk by the end of this movie.
My man. He hits a few people with a my man, and they're in completely different contexts too. Sometimes he means it. Sometimes he's like, "Oh, buddy, you don't know what you just did. You just got yourself killed." And potentially the most badass scene in this movie. Idris Elba bursts into into the restaurant, right, and tells him, you know, Bumpy's not around anymore. I'm the landlord. You pay me 20%. And the entire time, from the moment Idris Elba walks into the door, and yeah, that part too, but the part that sets it up, when Idris Elba, from the time Idris Elba walks in the door and starts letting him have it, Denzel Washington doesn't say a word. Idris Elba argues with himself for like 2.5, 3 minutes without Denzel saying a word. He sits there. He just like keeps pouring the sugar, which comes back around. And I remember being like, he's pouring a lot of sugar in that coffee.
Maybe that was how much life he had left, represented by the jar, you know, because I mean, at the end, was empty, man. Was put his 20% or whatever.
20%, it's not sustainable. 20% is my profit. You know, like you can't do business like this. Bumpy never did 20%. He's like, Bumpy not around anymore. And he was like, my man. So I was like, okay. And then, you know, he lays it out for his family there. You know, it's all about family. It's all about remembering where you come from, honesty, integrity. Then he's like, hold on one second.
I'll be right back.
Walks out the door, puts the gun to Idris Elba's forehead, and he's like, what? You're going to shoot me in front of all these? And it was like, oh.
He just walked back in.
And right before he dumped the sugar out of the thing, he put the jar next to him, and he took his money and put the 20% in his put the 20% in it, and was like, all right. Now what was I talking about? When he got back inside, and I was like, oh my fucking God.
His family was like, oh, like now I understand who we're dealing with. You know, he's
like they were like, we had our suspicions as to how he had the resources that he's acquired, and you know, I think at that point, I can't remember if it's right after that he takes them to his cooking operation, or if it was right before that he took them, and I think it was right after it. But you know, they had their suspicions, but then it's like, okay, so our older brother's a hard motherfucker.
Yeah, not to be messed with. You don't mess with Frank Lucas. And that, like, I was thinking, like, damn, like, so many people saw him do that. You know, like, there were so many people around watching this happen, but, like, what are they going to do? Like, they're not gonna fucking snitch on Frank, you know, like no way. Like after they see that, like, yeah, no.
That's what's so powerful about a move like that in a movie, you know, and in a movie with a completely corrupt police department that's, which I mean, like, definitely real. Plenty of very corrupt police departments, especially in the 70s. It's the 70s NYPD and NYPD in many years since. But, you know, leaves all sorts of fingerprints behind, eyewitnesses everywhere. But, you know, all the eyewitness stuff, all of them saw him do that. And that move is not just a fuck Idris Elba. It's y'all all saw that. You know what it is. It was a warning. Like, if any of y'all want to fuck with it, this is what happens. And goddamn was it hard as fuck. And I thought Idris Elba's character, this movie was just fucking stacked cast-wise. Every time someone else popped up, I was like, yo! Like, you know, we first get Idris Elba, then like shortly after that you get Cuba Gooding Jr., and then a little after that you get Josh Brolin, and I was like, holy fucking shit. And you know, a little after that, Chiwetel Ejiofor. I was like, RZA of Wu-Tang Clan. I was just like, oh my fucking god, I recognize Ruby D. I recognize everyone in this fucking movie. And yeah,
this was. I mean, I'm in it for my boy Denzel, but man, yeah, seeing all these other people come up was just really cool. Like all the, you know, and a lot of them were just in it for a little bit, you know, or not like too long, but it's just a night, like kind of like in Training Day, like whenever like Snoop and Dr. Dre, or like in like Terry Crews, you know, shows up. It's kind of like, oh, like it was just kind of like a cool, like, you know, they didn't have a super big impact on the movie, yes, or whatever,
but they were there.
Like, yeah, they were there, and it's
yeah, it is pretty awesome, you know. And one thing I wanted to point out about Idris Elba here, and something I had to remind myself about this movie as it was going on, is that it's from 2007, and it feels classic. It feels old, you know, and it is set in the 70s, so there's an obvious they're evoking that imagery, but it feels older. The film grain. Everything about it feels like it came from further back than 2007. This is only 15 years old.
Damn.
And something I had to remind myself of as I was like, man, The Godfather obviously influenced this. And then I was like, 2007? The last season of The Sopranos was in 2007. The Wire was going on in 2007. I think Ridley Scott, who now has a working relationship with HBO and is clearly not beneath doing series for HBO, took a grave degree of influence from The Sopranos and The Wire, specifically The Wire.
I've never seen The Wire.
It's a really good one. But Idris Elba has a character in The Wire, a crime boss named Stringer Bell, one of the main characters in the series for several seasons. And he plays a much more savvy crime boss. So it was so funny to see him the opposite.
That's cool.
With a complete lack of savvy. He definitely takes more after Frank Lucas in the series. But it was just so interesting to see. And yeah, I was going to say when I came into this podcast, this movie was like a perfect blend of The Godfather and The Wire with just a dash of The Sopranos feel every time they went to like Jersey. But yeah, like if you watch The Wire, you'll go, oh yeah, like there's definitely something at play here in terms of an influence. I think
is that Mandela, like, or does it just look like Bumpy? I was looking at the like these pictures and I'm like, was that just like I don't know. Just
what's funny in that moment too is that whenever he's showing those pictures to his girl, she's like, who's that? And he goes, that's Martin Luther King. And she's like, no, it's not. And he's like, and I thought it was a really interesting line. I was like, okay, it sounds like there are certain things in this movie that I was like, okay, I think they're really going for like this was one of the true moments. This is one of the things they actually said. I'd be willing to bet Frank Lucas at one point said that Bumpy Johnson was like Martin Luther King to him. So they were like, let's figure out a way to show that impact. And that line kind of fell flat for me, where he was like, he was the same to me. I was like, all right.
I mean, they were handing out turkeys, to the people out there, and Frank does the same thing.
Denzel was handing out the turkeys. Bumpy was tossing those turkeys. Hold the fucking phone for a second. People are hurting.
That's
if
true.
You're tossing a 14-pound
frozen
turkey at them.
Yeah,
that's like, I mean, imagine you're tossing bowling balls out of the back of a fucking truck.
I did not think about that. Wow, yeah, that's true.
No, obviously it's a movie, and they're going for the whole Robin Hood of Harlem thing, and Bumpy Johnson is a really interesting historical figure that there's been several adaptations of on screen. Lawrence Fishburne has played him a couple times. Currently in a series called The Godfather of Harlem, Forrest Whitaker plays Bumpy Johnson, the main character, the lead in that. So I'm definitely going to familiarize myself with that story more after this movie. I want to learn more about that. And I think I'm going to definitely go to Godfather of Harlem on Hulu after this and check out Forrest Whitaker's portrayal of Bumpy.
I was thinking of some other awards to give this movie. And man, I like every outfit that Denzel had, like just Denzel's costume design was awesome.
Denzel's costumes were fire, right? You got the classic, off the rack at JCPenney look. He's trying to sell the loudest man in the room is the weakest. He's like, so you got to keep it low key. And whenever his wife gets him that chinchilla coat, he's like, shit, I got to wear this, don't I? To make my wife happy. And he wears it ringside to Ali versus Frazier,
which was sick. Just a cool part of the movie.
Oh yeah, I loved how they were like Vietnam, they were like Ali versus Frazier, all these major things, the war on drugs being introduced, they were like, this is a historical thing. We are giving you actual events, and them at that boxing match where he's sitting in front of the Don of New York, closer seats to ringside than the Don of New York for the Italian mob. So Richie takes notice and is like, hey, who's that? And man, he would have been just fine if he didn't have to wear chinchilla. They might have been like, oh, who's that dude? But if he was dressed down like he usually is, he doesn't look as prominent.
And it wasn't until what was that? His character's name, the Godfather. Like Richie's he chose his God
Don. Catano. Dom Catano.
He doesn't realize that Frank's at the top until the threat is made against him, and he's like you don't mess with Frank, and or whatever. Well, at first he's he makes a guess as it's some Italian mobster, right? Or throwing it out there you're whatever, and then he's like, no, you don't mess with Frank, and he's like,
oh,
interesting. And then you just see him post his picture up on top of the billboard, or their
because he starts out on the side, and Richie lays it out before his own little investigative unit. He's like, Frank Lucas. He's like, here's why we need to be interested in this guy. All right. He shook hands with Joe Louis. He had closer seats ringside than Dom Catano. There's something going on here. And then he was like, but here's the thing. I don't think we're after Lucas. I think we're after whoever Lucas is working for. And I think
there's no middleman there.
That's whoever is bringing it directly from the source.
I guess the middleman was the army, technically, I guess, if there is a middleman. But, how are you going to go after the army?
And this is a real thing. as portrayed in the movie, the heroin epidemic amongst soldiers in Vietnam and later in America, or concurrently in America. They would use soldiers' body bags.
Damn.
To transfer heroin.
That's crazy. I guess they know they're coming back to the U.S. Yeah, like, I mean,
well, like it was like it as a scum of the earth crime boss thing to do, and crazy intelligent. And ultimately, some of the most unethical shit I've ever heard of in my life. Genius shit. The only fault in that plan is that war ends. You had to know this shit couldn't work forever.
That's right. Yeah, I remember like whenever he's hearing on the news, like ceasefire, like war is ending. He's like, what's going on? Like,
yeah, he's like, fuck.
Like, what are you? What you're not going to be doing? Like, he's like, no, we're going home. You know, like, yeah, we get to go home now. Yay! And he's like, what are you talking? Like, no, I need 200 kilos in the air now. And he's like, or whatever. Yeah, that was, man, gosh. I mean, yeah.
You told me I would have peace of mind. You promised me peace of mind.
I love that.
That's $25,000 alpaca. You blot that shit.
And even, I mean, that's how, isn't that like the 200 kilo? That's how they ended up catching him, or like following the transport. They was it that shipment, or was, because Richie eventually goes to like the base and like unzips the body bags and stuff. And, good. Oh yeah. Like whenever Richie eventually goes to the airport, like looks through the bags and then they eventually like scope it out. They sit there for the night and they're like, oh, that's got to be the dope. We got to follow it or whatever. And I mean that, like, whenever that was all clicking. Oh, and the absolute scumbag, like, was it a lawyer, or maybe like some government agent, or like someone who was talking to Richie, like, you got to stop this, like, right now. Like, there's no way that a black man could be doing what the Italian mob has been doing for blah, blah, blah. Or like, and then like just the slurs that he was throwing out. Like, I mean, like,
oh yeah, man. Like, that's what's interesting too, is that Frank Lucas took full advantage of the fact that, people would view him as lesser. He was like, hey, I know racism in a weird way will be working in my favor, quote unquote, in terms of them looking for who's in charge here. Like, they weren't even looking at him, because, like, how could that even be possible?
Man, yeah, I mean, he represented progress. Richie knew it. He even put him on the side first. I think Richie, I guess we didn't really see any prejudices that he had. He didn't really seem, too prejudiced or whatever. But I mean, even him, just the way that the times were, he put him immediately to the side, like, no, like at the bottom too, like bottom, like just over there, even shaking hands with those people, even having those closer seats. He's like, still going to put him over. No way he could be up at the top. But
yeah, he's like, I think we're looking for whoever Lucas is working for. But I'll tell you one thing that the movie ended up doing right, but could have gone sorely south had they handled it any other way, was the rollover at the end on Frank Lucas's part. You haven't finished The Sopranos, right? I'll confidently tell you, and they don't make any allusions to it, that Tony rats to get out of stuff. But can you imagine if the show ended with Tony rolling on everybody? It makes you go, man, fuck. I don't know. The only thing that saves it is that he's ratting on corrupt cops. If he was ratting on, like, business associates, then it's like, Man, I don't know. That feels like as the main character of our movie, the American gangster, you don't rat.
I mean, he said it though. He's like, those Italian guys, like, what the fuck have they done for me? You know, or like whatever. He's like, I'll give you whoever. I don't care. He's like, which was kind of funny, but Richie, he was after the cops. You know, he was after the police. That's who he was after, and
that's why I was like, okay, I'll take that.
Mm.
You know, I'll take that rollover. Like, that's something that is benefiting nobody.
True.
Corrupt police. That's
you take. Yeah, I guess you take
that
out
should
the crime.
be priority.
Yeah, you take out the crime, and you know someone's just gonna take their spot. You know, and someone's just gonna fill in that role. Crime will always be crime, but if you stop it from the source, you know, you stop like just allowing cops to look the other way, or
the Josh Brolins.
Yeah, man. At least he got his car exploded, and I guess ultimately, you know, he knew he was done. He knew, and
does he turn the gun upwards in this movie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I thought so. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, outside in his backyard. He was having like a drink or something.
Through the window, you see the person cleaning. Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember. I was like, I rewatched the first half of this movie last night and then fell asleep. So the ending I watched 4 days ago or something like that. But
he was like sitting in like on a chair or something. He had like a coffee or like a tea or something like on the chair, and he stood up and it spilled like all over like everything. And like from that moment, I'm like, oh, all right. This dude, yeah, he's not living too much longer. He's about to end it. And I mean,
Detective Trupo, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It was so cool, like seeing like Denzel and Russell Crowe, like whenever they were working together, like they were in like the office, you know, and like they're actually smiling, you know, and like not like just like enemies or whatever. They were just like truly working together as partners there at the end, and like,
hey, and you know, I was really satisfied by the end of this movie. The whole, like, 1991, he's been in prison a while. Richie greets him when he gets out. It's a whole new world to Frank. You know, time has passed. He needs someone he's familiar with to ease him back into the world, and Richie's there. And I thought that was a sweet way to end the movie. You know, like
why they call this Frederick Douglass Street or whatever now. He's like, this was all me.
This was 116th.
He's like, one phone call and I'm back into everything I want to do, or everything that I was doing. And then he's like, no, I'm not going to do that.
I'm not going to do that to you, you know.
And like seeing like, I guess the shoe brand maybe was supposed to be like Nike or something, like just showing him like new, you know, like he's like, what's that? And he's like, oh, new shoe company. You get $100 per pair of shoes at least, you know, minimum or something. You know, just showing him like the new things of the world. And he's like, you know, I wasn't ever going to let you starve, Frank, you know, or whatever. He's like, well, obviously you haven't been, you know, you haven't been starving. You know, he's like, just took like a punch to his gut a little bit, you know, like he was.
And there's also the fact that I think there's this cool payoff for Richie at the end where he's seen some character development over the course of the movie. You know, you see him grinding to become a lawyer in the first part of the movie. You see that he passed his bar exam. You see that he's a extremely good, genuinely good cop with right principles on most occasions, you know. When it's your partner that gets into some shit, there's some blending of I
did forget about that. Yeah.
The loyalties, you know. I mean,
I guess he was just thrown into that situation too.
Yeah, he was thrown into it. He came through and he was like, fuck, I see what happened here. You're fucking kidding me, dude. Like, and boy, did his partner look bad. Whenever they were in the back of the ambulance after that, and he was like, man, he tried to kill a cop. I had to do it. And he's like drooling all over himself. And he's like, you know what it is? I had to do it. You know, I was doing what you said, you know, staking out, investigating, getting all the facts. And I was like, oh God, this poor guy. And he was like, the guy didn't try to kill a cop. The guy tried to kill a junkie who was trying to kill him. Fucking shot at a cop.
He jumped out of the ambulance, you know, he was, and then I forgot how, did we see him in between whenever he jumped out of the ambulance and when he ended up dying? Or like, was it just like later on,
that was that for him. That was like there was a breaking point that I think happens when he finds the $1 million and they turn it in, where he was like, "Fuck it, man.
No one wants to work with me anymore." Blah blah blah. Like
no one wants to work with me anymore, and I'm out $500,000. And I like that Richie addresses it later on. Like, they go the two directions you go after that. One of them hit rock bottom. The other one, whenever he's confronted, like, you really turned in $1 million? He's like, yep, think about it every day. Maybe I shouldn't have. I could be literally anywhere else, but hey, I'm here. So,
and Frank even asks him, he's like, would you do it again? I'm going to offer it to you right now. You know, I'll put the car there. You have it all. And he's like, it's not what I want. Not what I want, Frank. Not doing it.
So by the end of this movie, I'll say confidently he's my favorite cop character we've had so far.
Yeah.
You know, like we've had, I think the one who might give him a run for his money is Ethan Hawke in Training Day. That was a strong character, but I feel like I got to like and see a development in Richie more. You know, it covers a much greater period of time. There's more to see there. And, you know, at the end of this movie, when he's like, it looks like you ain't been starving, you know, like, you ain't hungry. Like, he's seen success. His time struggling and being a deadbeat cop for a while, they're done. He's a lawyer now who's making money, looking good, fat and happy. And he's living the good life, you know, and I think that's good.
Proud of himself too. You know, he wore that's the Star of David proudly, you know, outside of his suit afterwards.
Absolutely.
Now. And,
yeah.
So he's very happy about that. He was very happy where he was, at the end there, which was good to see. And
he got, I forgot towards the end of the movie, he gets hit with a couple like Jewish slurs too, anti-Semitic slurs.
But one I didn't even know of, and I had to like look it up. I assumed it was a slur, just the way it was,
the way he reacted.
And then I'm like, oh damn,
that I was like, yeesh. Okay, I was. It was really cool to see him embrace that there at the end, that the Star of David around his neck. It's a moment of self-fulfillment, kind of like comfortable with who I am, comfortable with everything that's happened, and now I'm here. So
yeah, I mean his Thanksgiving dinner, like I love how it showed like Frank's feast with his family, and then it cuts to Richie in his apartment with the chips on the turkey sandwich or whatever, crush it down and eat it.
The fucking the straight up divorced dad energy this man was taking in his apartment. Oh man! But I loved the straight up like Norman Rockwell painting that was Denzel's family dinner. Like you've seen that, like the actual painting, the American Gothic sort of vibe.
Man, yeah, I guess I for awards for this, for actor I put Denzel as Frank Lucas down here, well deserved. I put Russell Crowe as Richie and supporting actor here, and that does fill up our supporting actors nominations now. So if we do have another one, we will have to eliminate some.
We'll have to cut. I mean, first out for me. I guess I'll save it for when the time comes. But yeah, those two. But
and I also put in supporting actress. I put Ruby Dee as Mama Lucas.
She had a strong scene in this. A few strong scenes in this movie.
Like whenever she like confronts Frank and was like, you know, like they're gonna leave you if you keep doing this. You know, like they're your brothers. They would do anything for you. And then she like very hard for her to say that. Like I'll leave you. You know, like she like breaks like in the middle of like her saying that. And like that moment whenever she like gets the house for the first time and sees like the furniture that he like made for her, it's like, oh, this is just so perfect. And like she's like, I turned a blind eye, you know, I didn't want to think about it, I didn't want you to have to lie to me, but like it's too gone. And like I remember like that, I don't know, that moment, like I feel like she deserves a nom there.
Oh yeah, definitely Ruby Dee for that best supporting actress nod. I'd say that's fair for sure.
I guess set design, I mean, it is just New York and Jersey. I guess we got a little bit of Vietnam. We got
We got some. I mean, but they created the atmosphere really effectively. You know, it's 2007 in real life. It never feels like 2007 in the atmosphere they've created. Especially that, like, they create the 70s aesthetic pretty well. They capture that pretty effectively. I mean, the house, that shit where that part where the dude's touching up on their cousin's girl and he shoots him in the knee. Denzel walks over, smacks the shit out of him, and then slams the piano on his head 7 times, turns around and goes, "Everybody get the fuck out." Mm-hmm. That's it. Go home.
That is alpaca. You dab. You do not wipe. What the fuck are you doing? You know, like,
that's $25,000 alpaca. You blot that shit.
Blot. That's right. That's what
you blot that shit.
Man, I think, you thinking any writing or directing here?
Hey, Ridley Scott's getting another director nod for American Gangster.
That's what I was thinking.
You know, that'll be his second nod of the decade after Gladiator, and I don't think those will be going anywhere. Mm-hmm.
We don't have any noms for writing yet.
That'll be one that I think we'll have to go back over and go, all right, yeah, these would be the noms. Like, I think if there's anyone that coming straight off of it, I'm perfectly good including it. It would be American Gangster, Gladiator, American Gangster, Kill Bill. I think they'd have to be there, you know. And we got a few spots left for the decade, couple spots left for the decade. So we shall see. But only 2 movies left in the decade after this one, which is man. Then we're on the 2010s. We're getting real close to the end of the year, huh?
We're getting there. Oh yeah, I'm 7 years old right now, and by the time of American Gangster, you know, we're getting we're getting there.
I was 7 years old as well. It has been interesting, the turning point from movies that were like, you know, like back in the 70s when we were covering A Clockwork Orange and Apocalypse Now and shit. Like, I'm like, I have very vague familiarity with these movies. These I've literally grown up with. I've heard about American Gangster pretty much since I was 7.
Yeah, like
the fucking album that was released alongside this movie, Jay-Z. American Gangster. There's a song called Falling that like I used to listen to all the time with my dad in his car. I remember it was that shit was so much fun. But yeah, American Gangster, 2007, released by Jay-Z. Whole bunch of fucking songs on there that just bang. And released alongside this movie. Got a song called Blue Magic.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. American Dreamin'. Yeah, that should slap. But feel like I'm falling. That shit bang. But yeah, this shit fun as fuck. Super good movie. Man, it's gonna do pretty well in these here ratings. If I had to guess so.
Man, and for a 3-hour movie, for enjoyment, for it, like, that's the thing. If it's a 3-hour movie and it doesn't feel like a 3-hour movie, you're enjoying it. Like, it's,
yeah,
I was in on this story. I guess maybe, like, I don't know, like, there were no really slow parts, I guess. Like, I'm trying to think of like a slow part of the movie, but like,
no, yeah,
really, like, everything was
it kept me for the most part.
Yeah.
If there was anything that I don't know that there was anything that I'd be like, you don't need that. And it's interesting because we watched the extended cut of the movie. We watched the movie that had 20 extra minutes. I guess there are scenes that were cut for the theatrical cut, and I couldn't tell you where they would fit in.
Yeah, I have no idea. Interesting. I forgot that we watched the extended cut. Wow. Yeah, I wonder what 20 minutes were cut out. That's interesting.
I think I also listened to something where I don't think the scene where he goes to the morgue and confirms his partner's dead body was in the first one. The original cut, I think the original cut just featured him jumping out of the ambulance and going, because it does become pretty inconsequential other than advancing the character for Richie being like, yeah, that's him. Like, fuck, this is the life, huh? Like, it's just kind of like it boosts up how good Richie's doing compared to what it can do to a person.
Interesting. Yeah, huh. Yeah, man. I guess watch the extended version, didn't even realize it until you did say it again. So, I mean,
yeah, there are 20 minutes that are gone from the original cut of this movie, which is really interesting. I have no idea where you pull those 20 minutes from, and I have a feeling if I watch a shortened cut of this movie without those 20 minutes, I feel maybe a little shortchanged because I don't know what you take from it. I don't know how you take something without it kind of picking stuff out that kind of tears it apart a little bit. I don't think it can be nearly as fulfilling that way.
I guess I was trying to find what were cut out. It looks like a flashback with Frank Lucas and Bumpy on the boardwalk. So I guess maybe when he was
first scene.
Oh, okay, interesting. Short scene showing Richie Roberts acquiring office space for his new narcotics task. Oh, whenever they're going through the building for the first time, I guess. And he's like, be careful with that. That's artisan glass, blah, 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 or whatever, maybe. Whenever they get the building that they their operations is in.
Oh, the flashback with Bumpy is when he's playing
with
fetch
the dog.
with his dog.
Yeah. That's what I thought. Nighttime scene where Roberts and his team tail a drug pusher with a stash of blue magic to an auto body shop. Next morning, Spearman strikes a deal with the shop owner Scott over the phone, which leads up to wait, what? Them scouting that car that car place where eventually they put the 20,000 in, whenever they're scouting it out. That was interesting. I felt like that was kind of crucial there.
Yeah, that feels like a very big part of the movie.
In the Bronx, right after Spearman drops off Roberts and informs him that he'll circle the block, the extended scene takes place where Roberts sees both Scott take off in his Jeep and Spearman getting blocked by a broken down truck, unable to reach Roberts. Interesting. Okay. After a Christmas visit with Charlie Williams, there's an extended scene with Frank and Ava back at their home where Frank reminisces how Bumpy gradually stayed more and more at home. Okay. I remember that where he's like, should we go out tonight or whatever? And then they eventually arrive. He gets a little drunk or something like that. And he's like, we should go out or whatever. Sure. And then they get, interesting. So I guess they just went out, in the movie. No lead up to that.
No deliberation on it.
Where Lucas, upon release from jail, is picked up by Roberts and the two make their way towards the intersection. That was extended?
Interesting.
That wasn't in the
movie. Oh, so the movie for other people just ends with a 5-minute montage of him ratting.
What? Wow.
Man, I'm really glad.
So it ends just with those title cards, I guess. Wow. I'm glad we watched the extended version because that scene was kind of what tied it all together almost. It was
yeah, I'm really glad we watched the extended version because I would have reached the ending of this and gone, okay.
Wow.
For enjoyment, I'm really, really high on it. I don't know if it's in the 5 caliber with some other 5 across the board movies. It's probably on Goodfellas level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
I'd say this is a 4.9 out of 5 in terms of my enjoyment of it.
Yeah. Love me some Denzel every time he's on screen, and man, he had a lot of screen time here. So I'm right there. I love this movie. This was awesome. A crime movie that was all crime. There wasn't it was I guess that.
And you got to see the law side in a way that was actually compelling. That wasn't get back to the other shit. Cause that's kind of what I find myself in those movies or in the shows whenever we go to what the cops are doing. I don't give a fuck what the cops are doing. But if you can keep me in it the way they did here, I'm there for it. Make a character of someone on the other side. Make it actually compelling. Like, I feel like that's something that the Departed kind of lost sight of. Like, the cop side of the story was interesting, and the betrayal stuff was interesting, but there wasn't some, like, I care more about Richie than I do Billy.
Oh yeah.
They do something more effective there with the character.
Yeah, I mean, even like whenever they have their board down, they're like, nah, like Richie's like, we got to start over. You know, he's like, we don't have like really anything.
We don't have a single piece of evidence on any of these
guys.
We
got to start from the street, and like that was like them going out taking pictures of everybody was cool. You got to like, even though it was like the cop side of it, like it was mainly showing the criminals,
the operation,
the operation and stuff. And,
yeah, it was really interesting, you know, and I think it was cool to see that. It was also really interesting that Frank Lucas kind of banked on never being thought of. Because as soon as he was thought of, boy, oh boy, did shit fall into place fast. Yeah. It was like, oh, I see. He's been, okay, his whole family moves up from North Carolina, and now all of a sudden, they're spread across the 5 boroughs with a bunch of different jobs, opening their own businesses.
I mean, that's how he lived his life, though. Like, they even, like, whenever Richie was like going through the day of the life of Frank, you know, he's like, he does this every morning. He eats breakfast by himself. Then he go like, blah, 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 blah.
Takes his
mom to church every Sunday. Goes to
Bumpy's grave and replaces the flowers every Sunday, no matter what.
Like, he was living his life, you know, like no one would have paid attention to him, or no one could think, you know, for one, he's a black man. And like, they're not going to think it's him in the first place because of just who he is. And then the way he lives his life is like, how could he be doing all of this in his spare time, whatever. But it's just, he's answered to, you know, people answer to him. He just makes the calls, you know, he just.
Well, and in that moment after, when it's like, it's $25,000 alpaca, you blot that shit. Right after that, he turns around and he goes, nobody talk to me. If you got anything to say to me, you go to Huey. Huey will talk to me.
Oh, man, man. Yeah, he was very smart in the way he organized his group and everything, and his operation. He's very straight to the source. You know, he brought in 100% pure dope, you know, and in that game, you know, can't really beat the street dope that was, you know, out there at the time was pretty crappy stuff. Blue Magic, you know, even he was like, it's my product, you know, I like copyright, you're taking my product and you're defaming it, you know, I can't have that. And you gotta like call it something else, call it Red Magic for all I care, or whatever. And
that's copyright infringement.
That was funny. But man,
oh man, but like for this genre rating, as a biographical crime drama, that might be another 5 out of 5, buddy.
I mean, I'm thinking so. I mean, when I'm gonna like recommend crime movies to people,
this is top 3.
Yeah, like
I've never watched this movie, right? Never have I heard if there's 3 crime movies you need to watch, it's Godfather, Goodfellas, and American Gangster. That's my 3.
Yep.
There's no doubt.
Yeah, no, it's just, that's how it is. Yeah. I mean, and they're both all 5s respectively. And this slots in right with it. I mean, this is required viewing if you want to know crime film. Like, this is, I don't know. There's no other way to say it. I don't think. Like, it's just,
I don't think so either.
This is with those other movies. And, you know, interesting that it's like kind of a mirror image of Godfather. And
it's almost even there's the Godfather is more about trying to maintain the power while we watch Frank Lucas's rise to it and how he maintains it after that. Like him having to go to the efforts and like go to Vietnam. We're going to the jungle, man. Well, I'm already in the jungle. What the fuck you talking about? No, I'm talking about this. I'm talking about mosquitoes that'll kill your ass. I'm talking about tigers. Talking about Viet Cong. And he's like, "Come on, we're going to the jungle." And he's like, "All right, fine, fuck, we going to the jungle." And when they get out there and he makes the deal with the dude, and
there's another my man right there when he makes the deal,
and that was some really, really cool fucking crime shit. Like, I find few scenes from our crime protagonists that are quite as cool and in the thick of it as Frank Lucas doing that. That's pretty fucking awesome. And then to get the other side of it with Richie Roberts just puts a little cherry on top. You know, like it was just a little extra for you. Like, you could have made a whole movie just Frank Lucas's side of the story, and it would have been good. But taking Richie Roberts' side of the story and having Russell Crowe portray him on that side, it brings it all together. So I think this genre, it's got to be a 5 out of 5. And then if we're talking critically as a film,
performances,
that's another really high rating, my guy.
The performances were amazing. It was shot pretty amazing. I mean, I guess not a visually beautiful film, not to say, but like, you know, it's showing the slums of New York and Jersey, but like for what it was showing was very,
it was really well shot.
I remember
there was one thing that I was thinking about as I was watching this, and it's that this is the dude who did Blade Runner and Gladiator. Two of some of our most visually pleasing movies so far. So I was like, I'm going to try and see that this is the same dude who made it. And there are some shots set up where you're like, oh, this is dope. There's that scene where he's walking into that meeting in the jungle with the top dog out there, and the camera pans to behind the dude who's sitting on the ground, and it shows Denzel in the doorway, and it's just his silhouette. Ooh, it looks fucking good. And the way they shoot those close-ups of people and at points are really effective. The lighting's always really Ridley Scott's got a monochromatic thing going on where he always likes to, it's all blue, it's all green, it's all orange. He's always got something that kind of makes the whole thing feel the same with each shot.
Yeah, look, there was one shot where I remember that someone was like taking a picture, like for you know, all the pictures they were developing, but then like it snapped and it showed like the black and white, and then it like zoomed through the camera and then like went into like what like I guess it's kind of hard to explain a little bit, but like it transitioned just from the picture into like actually the camera like filming that and like picture. And like it happening or whatever, like went from black and white and then into color and like show like, I don't know, it was just like there were a lot of just like really, I don't know, it was
cool choices.
Like even
and
like,
there are a lot of really cool. It's one of those movies that's not gonna, you know, like I remember King Kong knocked me on my ass visually, and it's because of those big epic visual effects shots and those pieces with a main chick walking down the street and her facing off with King Kong there at the end. Like, those shots are awesome. This is, like I said, I see the influence deeply from Francis Ford Coppola's Godfather and even Apocalypse Now. I think there's a degree of influence there. So I think the soundtrack was really effective. It's not one that dropped my jaw or anything at multiple points. Incredibly well performed. I don't think there's a weak spot in this movie in terms of that could have been better. Like, I felt that in like Scarface. There was a few performances in that where I was like, okay, I'm not getting that here.
And I mean, just looking at our other film scores here, you know, we have King Kong, Gladiator, at the 4.85. Trainspotting, another movie, you know, directed by him as well, like up in there. Sorry, I'm getting movies mixed up.
Next week's movie.
Yeah, next week. My bad. But
no, you're cool.
I mean, I don't know if it's quite up to The Godfather, Shawshank, and, you know, Raiders, Shining. I don't know if it's 4.9, but like, I think it's kind of made better than the 4.8s. I feel like I put it above all of these movies here: Forrest Gump, Truman Show, Good Will Hunting, Dead Poets, and that. I feel like this is
I think 485 is kind of where it's living.
Yeah, I think that's the company right there.
And I mean, it makes sense. Like we said, Gladiator at a 485. I'd say this was made every bit as well as the Gladiator, and in a.
Oh, that's pretty cool. The average it ends up tying with Goodfellas.
Nice.
Ends up tying it right there, right below The Matrix, but right above Forrest Gump and King Kong on average, which is pretty cool.
Averages it out to a 4.92 out of 5 stars on the old Penny Bloom film scale. If you're taking this to like, I don't know, fucking Rotten Tomatoes, it's like what?
I guess
fucking 96, 98.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty high up there. I mean, and I think deserving so. It definitely deserves it. Within these 485s, where do we place it?
I personally go. Ooh, that might be the top of 485.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like the other movies here. Like I think I'm putting it above Gladiator and Goodfellas, you know. The Matrix, I mean, as a film, you know, I guess, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's up there with King Kong and Jurassic Park. Like it's up.
I think it is. Like I think the floor for me is right below Jurassic Park. Below Jurassic Park, above The Matrix.
Yeah, I think these movies are just so visually pretty as well that maybe that's just what gives them the little bump above.
And a little bit more fun.
Yeah. So I mean,
there's a certain enjoyment thing coming into play there with those. Those were both, I think, 5 out of 5 enjoyments.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't know how I can comfortably go, yeah, American Gangster.
And I guess out of our enjoyment, out of these 5s, out of the 14 movies that we have and 5 out of 5 enjoyments for, where does it lie here?
And we did give it a 5 out of 5 enjoyment. Did we?
I
think we hit it with a 4.9.
4.9. Sorry. Yes, that is.
No, you're cool.
I guess so.
I think
a little easier to.
No, that's hard.
I guess it ties it with Goodfellas again.
Goodfellas. I think did it tie Goodfellas in every category?
Let's see. Yeah. Genre was also a 5.
Also a 5.
So yeah, I guess it tied in every category.
Never would have seen that coming. Never would have.
I guess which one do you prefer, Goodfellas or American Gangster?
That's
me. It's my boy. You know, I'm gonna watch American Gangster before I watch Goodfellas.
That's fair,
but it's not. I think it's not.
That's what's interesting off. Is that if I'm going performances, I think I want Denzel and Russell Crowe in American Gangster before I want Bob De Niro, Ray Liotta. If I'm going for a mob movie, though, you know, and that's the differentiation here is that American Gangster is not a mob movie. It is a crime movie and a crime family movie, but it's not a mob movie.
True.
So I think I go to them for different reasons. But I do think that on any given day, I personally would probably watch Goodfellas simply for the length. But American Gangster,
true.
I think I enjoyed it just barely more. You know, like if I had 3 hours to spare all the time, I'm turning on American Gangster.
Oh yeah, I'm glad I'm getting more Denzel movies in my repertoire. This one is definitely a nice addition to the list here, and man, yeah, I don't know. I like this movie. This was a very good one to hit. You know, we're getting like to movies that, you know, I've seen it and I know of the movie very well, or like I've never seen it and I've always wanted to see it. Like now, and this one is one that I've never seen, but I've always wanted to, and I'm definitely glad that we got there.
Oh yeah. So we conclude 2007 American Gangster, which came out as the highest rated film of our 2000s, highest rated film since 1999's The Matrix. So that's very, very cool. I mean, of course, besides Scooby-Doo.
Obviously. It's hard,
obviously, Scooby-Doo is a masterpiece unbeknownst to man.
In a caliber of its own. It's not really fair to compare it with anything else. And, we did say that about Star Wars, that it's not really fair to compare Star Wars to anything else. But
the only thing that's fair to compare to Star Wars is Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. And Scooby-Doo still edges it out, and it's hard
still
for me.
Edges it out in pretty much every single possible way.
Pains me to say, but
yeah, I love Star Wars with all my heart, but goddamn, Scooby-Doo's a masterpiece of film. But we conclude 2007 this week, and therefore next week we're on to 2008. We had some deliberation. We were like, we could talk WALL-E, go with another animated movie, and it was WALL-E for several weeks. But we were like, nah, let's go with Best Picture. Let's go with Best Director. Let's go with the critical choice. We're going 2008's Slumdog Millionaire for next week. And I'm very excited about that. I've never watched this movie, and it's one that I think I'll really, really enjoy. At least I expect to.
Me too. Yeah, I'm right in the same boat with you. I've never seen it. I've heard a lot of great things about it. I mean, it did win 8 Oscars. And Picture of the Year. I mean, I guess
be given,
don't want to go into
American Gangster a run for its money.
I don't want to go in too overhyped or anything. But definitely ready to give this movie a watch. That's for sure.
Very exciting. Very exciting. But yeah, with that, we conclude this episode of the Penny Bloom podcast. If you would, head to patreon.com/CoroBloom, where you'll find over 24 hours of exclusive content. All that money goes back into making sure we can put this podcast on just before this recording, and what will now be a couple months back. In the backlog of the Patreon, I gave my brief review for Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, talked about my excitement to go see The Northman, kind of aging this podcast a little bit, but a little bit of a time jump there, about 5 months. But
happy mid-September right now.
Happy mid-September. Do you? I mean, like, I will soon remember the 21st night of September. We're not quite there yet, but
almost. Do you remember
the 21st night of September? Nah, but Patreon, a lot of fun conversations over there. So definitely go check that out. All that money goes back into making sure I can put this podcast on. So that's a huge help. Head to Twitter, follow @PennyBloomPod, where if we are going to change plans, like we kind of have over the course of this for 2008, it was originally WALL-E. Now it will be Slumdog Millionaire. You'll find that information on Twitter @PennyBloomPod. Follow on Instagram @PennyBloomPodcast, where I post up a whole bunch of fun graphics for our episodes, breaking down what we discussed on any given episode. Very fun. And then I was Colton Robertson, joined by Joseph George. Thank you very much, homie.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, and it is always a pleasure to have you. And remember, peace, love, and bloom. And the loudest one in the room is the weakest one in the room.
My man.
My man.